All right, perfect. Well, I'm sure more people will join as time goes by, so I'll make sure to let them in. But we can go ahead and start. Thank you to everyone that is attending this webinar titled Developing and Implementing a Language Access Plan, also known as LAP. My name is Dan Tenorio. I'm an account specialist at LI, and I'm very glad to be able to host everyone today. I'm very excited for today's topic. It's one that I feel will benefit everyone that has language services, and they'll be able to see the benefit of a language access plan. Some housekeeping items before we start. Thank you to those that attended our last webinar titled Community Engagement Strategies for Diverse Immigrant Populations. That was held on December 17th of last year. And oh my goodness, it's been so crazy that time flies and it's already 2026. I can't believe it. And I just wanted to mention in that webinar, we focused on practical language access strategies to help organizations communicate effectively with immigrant and limited English proficient populations. And we also talked about fostering inclusive outreach and stronger community trust. So if you didn't get a chance to attend that webinar, let us know. We'd be more than happy to share a presentation with you guys. Another housekeeping item I wanted to mention is that we previously hosted these webinars on the fourth Tuesday of each month. That will change now with this new year, 2026. We will now be holding them every fourth Wednesday of the month. So welcome to the first one. I'm excited to have you all of you guys here. Just so you're aware, invitations are emailed to all of you, and you're also welcome to share these links and these webinars with your colleagues so that they can join as well. As you know, today's webinar is titled Developing and Implementing a Language Access Plan, but next webinar, which we held on February 25th, again, fourth Wednesday of next month, it will be titled Student Privacy and Multilingual Communication, a FERPA Guide for School Staff, to be held, again, February 25th. And just briefly, what we'll be talking about in that webinar is we'll briefly explain FERPA's requirements for protecting student education records and the responsibility of school staff in maintaining confidentiality. We'll also make sure to highlight strategies for effectively communicating these rights with multilingual families, and then also just making sure that as interpreters, as your language service provider, you guys know that we know that this is important to you and knowing how we can all implement this correctly to follow this law correctly, FERPA. I did want to mention, via as a reminder, that we do have a list of scheduled topics for this year for these webinars, and our sessions, our webinars are carefully designed just so that everyone is aware. And we've studied in advance these topics and chose them carefully. So we have a curated list for all of you guys for this year. That being said, we're always open to feedback. We're always open for from hearing from our current clients so that you can help us help you. We want to be able to address future topics and webinars related to language access, equity, and Title VI compliance for us to keep in mind for future webinars. So please feel free to share your suggestions either here by chat or by email. As you know, my email is Dan at linguisticinternational.com. And we'd love to be able to keep them in mind and see if we can incorporate them into some other future ones as we develop some other ones in the future. Um, I did want to mention that something new that we're implementing to help with this and also to keep in mind what your guys' thoughts are in regards to our presentations, our webinars, is we are now conducting a survey. We're using SurveyMonkey for this. I can go ahead and share my screen really quick if that's okay. Sabrina, I'll share it really quick. Let me go ahead and share that and let me know if everyone can see it. I'll go ahead and share. So if you guys just want to let me know with a thumbs up, Serena, can you see my screen? Perfect. So let me go ahead and share this with you just very briefly. I'll go ahead and share the link in the chat so you guys can go ahead and save this right now and take advantage of this. This is just a brief survey, nothing too complicated. It won't even take you even 5 minutes, I would think. We just want to be able to know what you guys think of our webinars, and we want to just deliver certain content in the future to better meet your guys' needs. So I'll just give you a brief, really brief overview of this survey. So we're asking for usefulness. What did you guys find useful of today's presentation for purposes of just advancing? I'll put that. Then we're asking like, what is something new that you guys learned today? We're always interested in knowing what is, what's something new that you guys might have learned. And what did you guys think of the length of webinar? Um, I'll just put just right. Of course, we always aim for that. And then what is a topic related to language services you'd be interested in learning about or benefit from or would benefit from? So just put that here. And then feedback. What feedback do you have for Linguistic International regarding this webinar? So feel free to add as much as you want for this section. And then on a scale from 1 to 10, what would you rate this webinar? So again, it's just a small survey for us to keep in mind to see how you guys are, receiving these webinars, how effective they are for you. Because again, we want to tailor these and make them very much to your benefit and enhance them according to what you guys believe would be best. So we're very interested in your feedback. So again, I'll go ahead and share this link so that you guys are aware. And I'm also adding a page so that we get your guys' organization name and email. So yeah, we'd definitely benefit if anyone wants to share their feedback. We'd love to. So let me go ahead and stop sharing. Sabrina, you can go ahead and share now. And last item I did want to mention, we'll have a QA at the end. And before I forget, of course, very important, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. So I'm happy to be able to introduce to everyone here Sabrina, who is the CEO of Linguistic International. For those that have been, in our previous webinars, or if you're new to this webinar, I'd like to let you know that she is a certified interpreter, and not just that, but she's also a national trainer and a trusted leader when it comes to equitable language access. And you guys, those of you who have benefited from hearing her in past webinars, you guys will know this. And she's been in this line of business for more than 24 years. She's worked alongside local, state, and federal agencies, helping to create interpreter programs that are both compliant and built to last. Sabrina earned her MPA from the University of Utah, and she has also completed executive programs at Stanford and Babson College. So with that being said, I don't want to take any more of this time with the introduction. I'd like to go ahead and pass the time now to Sabrina. Thank you so much to everyone that's in attendance today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan. Um, these trainings are specifically tailored for the needs of the clients that we serve. We are a government agency. And so a lot of what we are seeing across the US are best practices that have been implemented within state and local government. And we like to share those practices. I'm actually very, very excited about this particular training. I have helped state agencies develop language access plans before, including the state of Washington. And a language access plan is a set of instructions. I will go through and create the most practical set of circumstances and instructions for you if you'd like to implement a language access plan in your organization. We will save this presentation to our webinar section in in the Linguistic International website. So if you ever need to download any of the trainings that we've done in the past, feel free to do so there. We can also come to your organization, attend a webinar or a video meeting if you have one scheduled, and talk about specific topics that you're interested in. So let's dive in. Just briefly, a little bit about Linguistic International. So again, we've been around for 25 years, offering services primarily to government agencies. We are a government contractor by expertise. We provide over-the-phone interpreting, video remote interpreting, on-site interpreting, as well as American Sign Language. And we do so through a number of tools, including a video remote platform, a phone system that can be customized. So a lot of our clients, when they have high volume call centers or high volume usage, they can actually customize their auto attendant to request specific languages first. So when you call in, it could say something like, "Thank you for calling Linguistica. If you need a Spanish interpreter, press 1." And then we can list your top languages. There's a number of things that we can customize, and I think our clients don't necessarily know how much customization we can make, how much we can integrate within your existing programs. So at the end of this slide, at the end of the presentation, I'm sorry, I will list a few contact members there from our account management team that can help you at any time. And I'll also have my phone number listed there, and I am available to support you in whatever way I can. The first thing that I want to start off with is putting a little bit of context around the need for language services. There are currently 316 million people living in the US age 5 or older. Approximately 71.1 million of them speak English, speak a language other than English at home. That's about 22%. That means one out of every 5 person in the US speaks another language other than English at home. The acronym LEP or LEP refers to Limited English Proficient. That means that these individuals, this group of people, need interpreting services. And we have approximately 27.6 million limited English proficient people living in the US. I think the big takeaway here, obviously, is that we are no longer in a situation in the US where we can ignore people that speak other languages. It's vital that all of our agencies have some kind of interpreting service available at all time. We've seen rural locations where we used to not be as active, activate language services for rare languages. So even after the pandemic, we saw a huge movement of people moving from large cities to more rural areas, and we're seeing a higher number of language requests coming from pretty much all areas. Some of the states that we did not expect would grow as much are seeing the highest numbers of requests. So what languages are showing up the most? I can imagine that all of you would think Spanish, and you are right. Spanish remains the highest volume need at a national level, but we're also seeing a number of other languages, including Arabic, Vietnamese, Mandarin and Cantonese, Somali, Russian, Dari, Pashto, Burmese, and so many more, including languages of lesser diffusion, Kinyarwanda, Kirundi, Somali, Ukrainian. You can imagine the variety of languages. Linguistica covers services in over 355 languages, and the number of dialects is significantly growing. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, for the language access plan that we're going to be talking about, it's really critical that you focus on your local data, because you can the lab should always be driven by your local data and not just a national assumption, right? You can assume that there's going to be Spanish, and in that case you would be correct, but what other languages are you serving in your area? And you need to start tracking these needs. So who needs language services? We need language services in healthcare facilities, in schools, in public service agencies, large call centers that are receiving calls from the public, like let's say an unemployment service, a Medicaid office, a WIC clinic, a workers' compensation location, clinics. I mean, you name it, right? There's just so many different places. And within government, you pretty much see them across the board in, there's the high hitters that would be Department of Health and Human Services, the schools, Department of Corrections, but you see them in other agencies as well. And so what the language access plan will do is give you a set of instructions that you can follow to make sure that you're serving everyone in your community. And really the operational takeaway here is you want to build access to standard workflows, meaning you don't want to see language services as something tedious that's difficult to implement. You want to implement it within your standard workflow. So if it's a front desk, then you want to make sure that the front desk staff member has the phone number, the account number, all of these critical pieces of information ready to be able to access interpreting services quickly. We have so many trainings on the legal requirements around language services. So I'm not going to go into this too much, but please know that within our webinar series, we have done a number of trainings focusing on Title VI, on class standards. All of these trainings are available if we don't have them uploaded on the webinar page within the Linguistica website. You can reach out to Dan or myself or Jordan, that'll give you his contact information as well, and we can get those webinars over to you. So I'll keep this short, but it is important to understand that regardless of the current administration or the federal guidelines that are coming out, like Executive Order 14416 around English only, there are still laws in place that affect the requirements around language access. One of them being Title VI, and that's the main one. And Title VI of the Office of Civil Rights requires that government agencies provide limited English proficient individuals with interpreting services in order to be able to participate in all of their programs. We also have the Americans with Disability Act, and there are strong guidelines and strong requirements and criteria around providing interpreting services for our various different communities, and ASL is definitely a requirement. They must be qualified. In some states, they need to be at a higher level, so please know your state requirements. Also, states have issued a number of rules and legislation around interpreting services. So knowing what your state requires is important. We do keep a database of all of the legislation around interpreting services and requirements around language access, so we can also provide you with that information. I wanted to provide you with a few samples of language access plans. So I did a quick screenshot here of, there are so many of them that I'm going to show you in the next slide a few of the different language access plans within different organizations. Now, a quick Google search will show you what's out there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are many templates that you can follow. Some certainly I consider the gold standard around language access. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. And I also want to share with you some key features around understanding how to go about creating the language access plan. So what is a language access plan? If you've never heard of this before, a set of instructions to provide all of your communities with language services. The first thing that you need to do is you need to understand who needs language assistance. And that means understanding your communities, doing some research, finding out who lives in your area. Number two is, do you know how to access language services quickly? And this is a matter of education within your organization and making sure that you have the right signage and you have distributed the information broadly to everyone that's going to be accessing language services. So keep in mind that many organizations already have a language access plan in place. Unfortunately, it's been filed away somewhere. A language access plan needs to stay consistent over time. It needs to be refreshed, and it needs to be reviewed based on the community trends that you're seeing. If you are having a big community outreach project, for example, you want to make sure that you're translating, documents into the various languages that live in your communities. And if there's been a big shift over the last 24 months, you want to know about it, right? So the language access plan, also referred to as the LAP, makes language access predictable and reliable. This is a township. Mill Creek Township is in Pennsylvania. They released their language access plan back in 2023. They have kept it up to date. It is one of the gold standards in terms of a smaller county. However, again, it's a quick Google search away. You can just Google language access plan and you will see various different models. 5 simple steps to create a language access plan. 1, knowing your language. 2, providing interpreter access fast. Three, translating vital documents. Now, you don't want to go and translate everything. You want to make sure that you are translating documents that you are frequently giving out. That means consent forms, maybe information about how to apply for services. And you want to make sure that those are in line with the communities that you're serving, meaning if you are serving a large Venezuelan population, right? You want to make sure that it is targeted for them and not for a large Mexican community, because there are some language differences, not so much in language in the syntax, but more in the use of certain terms. And so you want to make sure that the translations are reviewed by someone who is focused on understanding your community. And that's something that you can always ask us. If you're translating if we're translating a document for you and you wanted it reviewed by a certain a person that understands the language from that particular community, and a proofread by someone who understands that community, it's going to make a lot more sense. You also want to train staff with, job aids, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I won't dive into this too much, and then keep it current. I'll go through the steps quickly, and then I want to show you some ways that you can actually access language data and all the information that's out there. This particular language access plan, I consider, the gold standards on language access plans. They're coming out of New York, California, the state of Washington, the state of Massachusetts. Those particular states have extensive work around language access, and they have developed very, very good policies around this. So you can always use samples from those 4 states, and I think your language access plan would be absolutely solid. Knowing your language starts with intake and preferred language data. What does that mean? That means that if you're already serving a large community, you want to start asking them what is their preferred language. Many state agencies, many cities and municipalities, schools, you guys are already gathering preferred language data. Now, what do you do with that information? Is you gather it knowing that there are particular preferences that may require interpreting services. Like I speak 3 languages. What's my preferred language? It might not be English, but I might not need an interpreter. So there's a way that you can ask, and you want to piggyback the preferred language with the interpreter request trends. Now, many of you are already using our services, and depending on how long you've been using us for, you can actually request information from us. So you could say, I'm a school district in Arkansas, and I want to know how many interpreting, please provide me with a language service request data set. And we can tell you, okay, let's say our contract goes back to 2023. We can give you information on how many times you've requested a certain language. Know this, that particular data set may be a little bit skewed, because some agencies, even within the agency, there are representatives or staff members that use the services and others don't. And there are agencies that tend to have higher volume because the staff members are the ones that are using the services. So you want to make sure that that information is not skewed. So there's a lot of detail, and the devil's in the detail when it comes to reviewing that data. Why is, this particular WIC office using more services than this other one, and this other one is in a more diverse community, in a more diverse neighborhood, right? So you want to look at those trends. Now, there's also census baseline data that you should be getting. I want to show you here quickly how to get Census Bureau information. So when you go to the US Census, there's a section that's called Profiles. When you click on Profiles, you're going to see every state profile. And sometimes you can actually go in you can dissect the area by city, by municipality, by county. If I go in specifically to the state of Alabama, for example, I can click down here. I can go down and see some information from the census about who lives in my state, right? So you have 4% Spanish speakers, et cetera, et cetera. And down here, you're going to see how many foreign born. You're going to see information on, let's see, foreign born. I need to put my glasses on. Okay, so languages spoken at home, there's 6.4% of the population living in Alabama that speak a language other than English at home. Now, with the census information, you can only go as far as, yeah, you can go far, but you can actually go further with the Migration Policy Institute data. So you want to use data sets from your state agency or from whatever government agency you're working with, but you also want to use national data. And the best tool that you can use is the Migration Policy Institute data. This is, even though it's back from 2023, this tends to be the most up-to-date census information in terms of language access. So let's go down to, and in this case, I'm looking for Alabama, but you can click here, right, for any state. Let's say you want to do, well, let's just do Alabama. I'm going to scroll down and I am going to start seeing the number of people in my state that speak a language other than English. Okay. And again, you're using this in conjunction with other data that you're gathering. This step is critical. You can't assume that by looking at national data, you're going to be at a place where you understand what languages you need to translate your documents into. Using census data will help you Migration Policy Institute data and state-specific data around language access. And then community and staff insight. This is critical. So many times we've seen agencies that say, oh, I don't have, let's say Vietnamese community in my, I don't need Vietnamese interpreting. And the reason why I give this particular example is because we were working with a clinic that was in the middle of an area that had a high population of Vietnamese residents, and no one was coming into their facility. They hired a Vietnamese front desk staff member and they started offering interpreting services. And the number of people that started coming in speaking Vietnamese grew extensively. And part of this is if you build it, they will come. A lot of our communities don't know that they can actually access services. So they're counting with family members and friends to go in and interpret for them. And you must know your state laws because there are many states that have deemed this illegal. Also, using family members and friends will not be a good idea for many reasons, as I'm sure you can all imagine. There's some other language access plans that you can see for cities. The City of Los Angeles language access plan is very comprehensive. The second step that you need to do is, that you need to go through to create your language access plan is provide access fast, right? So what does this mean? You want to make sure that everyone has the information to access services quickly. That means the phone number and the account number, whether you're using Linguistica or any other vendor. When you call a language service provider, many times the big question is going to be, what is your account number? Where are you calling us from? We ask what your account number. So if you don't have one, or one of your staff members needs the service and they don't have one, there will be delays in accessing the service. If you haven't set up an account, you can set up an account at the last minute, but it's not going to be good for the staff member needing the interpreting services or for the LEP because account setup is not immediate. You want to make sure that you know what to access quickly. So if you need phone interpreting services, what are the steps? If you need video interpreting, what are the steps? If you need to request on-site interpreting services, what do you need to do? So I could go into this in detail. I'd rather make sure that you all know that this is step 2 and that you need those instructions labeled quickly for your staff members. Now, when you choose phone, video, or on-site, there's a method to what you decide to choose, right? If you need something immediate, you're going to go for phone. And phone is great for the majority of assignments. However, there's certain occasions where you're going to request a video interpreter, either because you need an ASL interpreter or because you want to make sure that the interaction is more personable. In that case, you need to request the service a little bit ahead of time or make sure that you have a setup that will allow you to do this. Also, if you have community workers that are going to people's homes, you also want to make sure that you're equipping them with the right tools to be able to access the service. On-site interpreting services, you need to call and request in advance. We can provide interpreting services on demand depending on the location, but remember that on-site interpreters, there is a massive shortage of them nationwide, especially after the pandemic. So this requires a little bit more planning. Step 3, you translate only vital documents. Now you can go and translate all the documents that you like, but really focusing on the ones that are high usage is where the key is, right? You want to translate consent forms, safety documents, any kind of emergency communication, complaints and grievances. We don't see a lot of those translations, but those are critical too, because if you're trying to get feedback from your communities, you need to make sure that those kinds of translations are available for them. If not, they will never complain, right? They're happy customers until you ask them. And if you don't ask them, then we'll never know where we can improve. Make sure that the right information is accessible and and ready to be used by the right staff members and that they know where these documents are. Lastly, train staff, right? You can have the best plan in the world, but if you are not training your staff, then it's going to be difficult for anyone to use these services. Just really quickly, training should cover how to connect in under 60 seconds, right? Like how to access over the phone interpreters, when are interpreters required, what are some bilingual staff boundaries? If you have bilingual staff members and they are providing the service in their language, they are not interpreting. There's this misconception that, oh, I have a bunch of staff members that speak Spanish and they're my interpreters. No, they're providing the service in Spanish. That doesn't necessarily make them an interpreter, right? An interpreter receives training on how to clarify. An interpreter receives training on confidentiality, on making sure that they're not summarizing, that they are maintaining the message clearly, and that they're asking for either party to either speak slower so they can interpret everything that was being said. The terminology issue comes to play. So there's a lot around interpreting. A 40-hour training is a basic training that an interpreter should receive. And so bilingual staff members, if they are required to interpret, you should be training them. You can contact us. We also have trainings available. However, make sure that if your staff members are going into the role of interpreting, that they actually are trained and that they know the terminology, because that's a big issue. Privacy and confidentiality, this is key. Sometimes when using interpreters, there's a set of rules that the interpreters know in terms of privacy and confidentiality, but you should also know as a staff member using interpreting services. And so having training on all of these things is essential and should be included as part of the language access plan. You want to keep it current, and that just means make sure that you review your document on a regular basis, that you update vital documents, that you give staff ongoing training and reminders of where things are, and that you adjust to the new populations that you're serving. A simple annual agency self-check, and this just means once a year you should go back and ask these questions. Do staff know how to access an interpreter quickly? Are vital documents available in priority languages? Are LEP clients receiving the same service access? Have I surveyed them? Have we talked to them? What are some of the things that we should know about them? When New York State did their language access plan, they went around and they had these feedback sessions where they brought interpreters and they met with different community groups and they asked them, how can we serve you better? And they provided that feedback, and the feedback was implemented within the agency. And obviously that is, it's a lot more work but it does yield better results. And then lastly, are new languages emerging locally? What, keeping focus on serving the people that actually are living and residing within your communities. I could say so much more about this particular topic. I think it's great to have a plan. This reminds me of class standards, which are the culturally and linguistically appropriate services standards. We do have a training on that that was created by the Department of Health and Human Services. And it's a document that basically teaches you step by step on how to essentially create a welcoming environment for everyone in your community, including people that don't speak English. A language access plan is very similar to that, but it's more targeted. I think a language access plan is a lot easier to monitor and maintain. And so I encourage all of you to really look at that and see where you can improve in your area. Thank you so much for the time. If you have any questions, I'm open to answering. If I know the answer, I will go ahead and answer. If not, I will look it up. I love nerding out about the topic of language. I've been in this industry long enough that I know some things, and I am always very curious about what other states are doing to improve their services. So if you have any questions, if not, this is our contact information. You can either ask the question on the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask anything if you have any questions or concerns.
And while we see if anyone has any questions, Sabrina, if I may, I just wanted to share my screen really quick, if that's okay.
Just go ahead.
So again, I went ahead and shared in the chat, everyone, the link for today's webinar survey. I did want to show you that after seeing the first page, just the introduction, it then leads you to tell us a little bit more about our organization. So you could add your name, the account name, and then your email address. And then it will go ahead and then ask you for, yeah, what you thought about the presentation and so forth. So yeah, just wanted to let you guys know that. In case you also want to add any comments, feedback, or questions there for us as well. And again, that's been shared in the chat box. I'll go ahead and just share that link again. If anyone would like for me to email it to them directly, please let me know. But if not, I've gone ahead and added it in the chat as well. Again, thank you. I'll go ahead and stop sharing.
Okay, thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure having all of you in this presentation today, and we will go ahead and upload these trainings to our webinar section. Where can you download the slides? Dan will go ahead and email you the slide deck. If you send us your email, we'll go ahead and you can just put your email in the chat, and we'll go ahead and share the slide deck with anyone that wants it. I appreciate your time and have a great afternoon. Thank you so much. Thank you.